Hi, my name is Sanjay Srivastava. I am Chief Digital Strategist for Genpact, a large global professional services firm. I'm a venture partner in the venture capital ecosystem, focusing on companies in the data, AI, and Agentic AI spaces. We have a portfolio of startups that are actually just doing amazing work. And then I chair a think tank. It's a global think tank for CIOs, CTOs, CDOs, Chief AI Officers of really Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 corporations. We have 150 members from Japan to the US, from North to Southern Europe. Really a great set of peers that we use to pull together the collective intelligence in our ecosystem. I think there are three things super important for most enterprises to think through as they go down the journey of AI, generative AI, and agentic AI. Number one is data. I would basically, and very frankly tell you, don't even get started with AI till you get your data foundation in order. And that's not just having data in the right place and setting up a culture of data products and mindset of getting data cleansed, but it's also about ensuring that that data actually is mapped into the right kinds of applications that you're using. So that's number one. The second thing I find most enterprises stumble through is operating models. And one of the things we've learned with AI in particular, and it's different from previous versions of automations we've done. So when we did automation, and you and I, and we've all done this back in the day, you take an end-to-end process, you break it into its pieces, you take every single piece and you digitize it, and you slam them all together into one end-to-end workflow, and you pull it together. And it's better, it's faster, it's quicker, it's more scalable, it's most likely cheaper. And so it's a great way to automate it. But the work that's remaining is still the same. Contrast that to what we've learned with AI. When you put AI into a process, it fundamentally changes the process. It changes the work, it changes how it attaches to upstream and downstream processes, and frankly, it changes what human colleagues now need to do. It's an entirely different work. So if you don't get an operating model change done at the same time you're deploying some of these AI and generative AI solutions, you've got, if you will, one half of the pie working for you, and you're kind of missing out the other leg. And so, because many of these initiatives are led from the technology office, I think it becomes very important for you and I and people like us to really be thoughtful about across the enterprise stakeholdership, engagement, and changing the operating model. And the third thing I tell you is skilling. Skilling is a big challenge for most companies. I look at companies that I work with, the CEO, the board, and the C-suite are completely bought into it. I think the early career professionals that are coming in from colleges not only are bought into it, they actually live that lifestyle. But the people in the middle, that large chunk, actually, we really have to think about skilling. How do we reskill this team? How do we bring them into the new age of AI? And being thoughtful about it in terms of the technical components, in terms of what you allow and bring to people for them to be able to use, but also how you transition careers, how do you transition learning paths, how do you give feedback so your employees know what to develop in. And those things become really important. I see the best companies in the world focus on skilling really, really, really deeply. For instance, at Genpact, we built an amazing training institute, and we're taking 110,000 employees globally through AI training, AI certification, and AI engagement. One of the things I worry a lot about as a chief digital strategist is the enterprise architecture in the age of AI. So when you really start thinking about it, many of us are using AI in different ways. Beyond the fact that I use it personally, when I show up at work, we have AI implemented straight as, let's say, OpenAI with a firewall, and let's say an Azure firewall with some metadata that constrains it to my environment, maybe some retrieval augmentation. That's a very simple model implementation. Then we've got ERPs and other core systems companies that are building agentic AI or AI into their capabilities. You've got other software application providers that are building their own agents or their own AI into these components. And then frankly, many of us have implemented we built our custom built pieces that address a specific need just because the technology is not available, and we've had to kind of pull that together to be able to get the market need and get ahead of it. And so one of the things I worry about is what happens next, right? As agentic comes around and there's more and more agentic solutions in the workplace, are we going to have a patchwork of models that'll sit within the core, within the edge, in the middle, in the middleware? And then how do we manage that? How do we know when the finance agent interacts with the HR agent or let's say the pricing agent, and then with the legal agent and the contracting agent to pull together a contract? How do those handshakes happen? How do they work, and what models are they using? the technology architecture behind this is super important. It's important to get that right. And one of the biggest questions I think on the table then become, should we actually have a thin core? All of this legacy investment that we put money in, should that actually be very thin? And then we use the intelligence and AI to be the thick edge, if you will. And that's an interesting conversation we've been having at so many companies. And it talks to the fact that SaaS companies, software as a services companies, are very ripe to be completely disintermediated with agents and agentic technology. And so we've got to give a lot of thought to how the landscape will evolve and make sure that we're planning for it appropriately. By the way, I'm biased because I invest in startups, I direct startups, I'm involved in it. And by the way, I was a 4-time startup entrepreneur, built and exited 4 startups into the industry. And so very, very biased, take it with a grain of salt. I tell you now, the opportunity and the time right now is amazing to build software and AI, agentic AI companies. And that's because you're catching the world at an inflection point, right? We had a set of technologies in the past and a new set of AI-based capabilities coming through. And we're sitting in a world where geopolitical tensions, supply chain disruptions, trade and tariffs, economic policies, macroeconomic concerns, regulation, sovereignty, a lot of these things are adding complexity to business models, and companies, large enterprises, are struggling to work through all of that. Existing solutions don't meet those needs because we didn't build these solutions for that age. Things have evolved so much. And so if you are thinking of building a startup that is lean, that is client and customer focused, that is working back from an actual problem, and is single-mindedly focused on delivering outcomes, not just building products, then I think you're in a great spot. And I kind of wish you all the best and happy to stay engaged.